everybody, my name is Cassie, and the title we will be discussing today is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, both the film and the movie adaptation, and we will be discussing the similarities and differences, and I will be giving my opinion on which one that I like best. So first off, the book. The book was published in 1962 by author Ken Kesey. Kesey got the inspiration for this book when he worked graveyard shift as an orderly at a mental health care facility. The title he got from a children's nursery rhyme, which is mentioned in his book through one of his characters, Chief. One thing I did notice about this book is that the chapters are not numbered. It's very obvious where the chapter begins, but none of them have chapter numbers. The film was released a few years later in 1975. Kesey was actually on board with making this movie for about 2 weeks until he discovered that Chief was not going to be the main character and narrator in this movie. Instead, it was going to be McMurphy, who was played by Jack Nicholson. Once he discovered this, he left the film and refused to watch it for the entirety of his life. And at one point in time, he even tried to sue the makers of this movie for tampering with his book. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of the top 100 American films according to the American Film Institute, and is one of 3 movies to win all 5 Academy Awards. You can see they also have that printed kind of up here on the top corner. The winner of all 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. This film includes many famous actors such as Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, and as you can see from the cover, Jack Nicholson, who is the main character of the film. An interesting fact about this film is all the actors that played patients in this movie actually lived on at the Oregon State Hospital psychiatric ward throughout the entirety of the production to interact with real psychiatric patients. First, I'm going to discuss the similarities of the book and the movie. The major characters are there in the movie that were in the book. You still see Chief, you still see McMurphy, you still see the infamous Nurse Ratched, you see the main support characters that were also in McMurphy's gambling ring, and you see other characters such as Dr. Spivey and Nurse Ratched's helpers. The movie and the book do a very good job of going along the same plot line. Both are based upon Randall P. McMurphy, who is played by Jack Nicholson, who has fooled the jail into thinking that he has a mental illness, and he is therefore sent to the psychiatric ward to be evaluated and treated. Many major scenes that were in the book were still included in the movie adaptation, and that's very important because a lot of scenes are usually cut from the book to make the timing on the movie as it should be, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see that most of the major scenes that were in the movie were still in the book, such as the fishing on the boat scene. You still see the gambling ring that McMurphy creates to gamble for cigarettes and money. You see the group therapy that is hosted by Nurse Ratched, and you see the banter between McMurphy and Nurse Ratched a lot. It also goes by the same ending of how McMurphy died and also Billy's suicide. Although the movie and the film did correspond well together, there are several differences that are seen. The number one critique that is found in this film is the narration. In the book, Chief is the main character and he is our narrator giving us the story. So everything we see, we are seeing through Chief's eyes. It is much different in the film. The main character, everything revolves around McMurphy, who is played by Jack Nicholson. And Chief is sadly enough given more of a side character role. His role's not as important. He is not as prominent throughout the film as depicted by the book. And his character is really just downplayed in the film versus than what it was in the book. One small thing that I did notice, and it's a very small detail and it probably doesn't mean much of anything to the movie, but I am slightly partial to redheads. And in the book, McMurphy is an Irish redhead. So I was a little slightly disappointed when I watched the movie and McMurphy was not a redhead in the movie. So it was just slightly disappointing to me. It's really not that big of a deal and it's not that noticeable to many other people, but I just found it disappointing. One big scene that was in the book that did not make it to the movie was Cheswick's suicide. Cheswick committed suicide in the pool when McMurphy did not stand up for him against Nurse Ratched when he rebelled against her, and it just depressed him so bad that he drowned himself in the pool, and that scene was not in the movie. And as a matter of fact, Cheswick is seen from the beginning of the movie all the way up until one of the final scenes. So he is prominent throughout the film, whereas he died in the book. Another scene that is slightly altered according to the book is the fishing scene that is in the movie. A lot of things are different. For example, the fishing trip was a planned event between McMurphy and Dr. Spivey, whereas McMurphy instead uses Chief to help him jump a fence, and he hijacks a bus and takes the men out fishing. One thing that really bothered me about the fishing scene is that, you know, of course, in the book, Chief was present. He went. He is our narrator. We saw it all through his eyes. In the film, the only role he played throughout the entirety of the fishing scene was the very small part of him helping McMurphy to get over that fence. And that's the only scene, the only part that Chief played in that scene. So although I do have to say I was both very impressed with the book and I was very impressed with the movie, both are excellent, and I recommend everybody to read the book and watch the movie, I do have to say that my choice would definitely be the book. The book has so much more in it that the movie is lacking in. I think it gives more detail, more depth to the character, and of course it gives more than what the movie does. The movie did a great job with portraying the book in film, but I do have to say that the book was more enjoyable to me than the movie was. So which one did you enjoy better? Would you prefer the film or the movie? Until next time, when we'll be talking about The Broken Trail.